Now, democracy, we have a date come February 2027 when Nigerians will return to the polls to cast their votes, exercise their franchise as they elect new leaders across the nation. But is the trust in the system there? Nigerians have lots of questions after many promises were broken in 2023. We saw the collapse of the beavers, we saw discrepancies between what was counted at the polls and what was eventually uploaded at the collation centers. INEC, all eyes are on INEC to see if they can deliver free and fair elections where Nigerians feel safe, irregardless of their ethnic background, their religious backgrounds, and they're able to cast their votes and elect the leaders of their choice. A lot of questions as we count down to Nigeria Decides 2027. Joining me from our Abuja studio, I'm joined by a human rights lawyer in the person of Martin Obono. Welcome to Rubbing Minds.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Thank you for honoring our invitation. Now, 2027 is just 12 months away. How confident are you in the new leadership of INEC to deliver an election that's free, fair, and Nigerians feel safe to cast their votes? Martin, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Did you get the question? Martin, I can hear you. Did you get the question?
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Sure. 2027 is just a year away. We have a date for the general elections. How confident are you in this new leadership of INEC to deliver free and fair elections where every Nigerian, irrespective of their religious or ethnic background, feels safe to exercise their franchise?
Thank you for this question. So first of all, there has been so much that has been said about the new chairman of INEC, Professor Amupiton. And usually, as usual, whenever a new INEC chairman is appointed, there will be accolades, high expectations, and people will say he was a good professor, he was my good teacher, and all that. However, INEC is a different ballgame entirely. It's a process that actually tests your integrity and tests your ability to be able to prepare, plan, and implement a very contested elections. Therefore, it will be too early to say I'm very confident in the capacity of the new INEC chairman because he hasn't been tested. He hasn't been tested in terms of how to handle logistics of elections and on a broader scale. He hasn't been tested in terms of how to be accountable to Nigerians when an election is conducted and people feel that the election results do not tally. He has not been also been tested in terms of accountability, in terms of handling the budget of INEC, where you can say, okay, after the elections happened, this was the scorecard, this was the reports, the financial reports and all that. He hasn't also been tested in terms of post-mortems of an election to say this election was conducted and this was what happened during the elections. Basically give a scorecard of what the election played out, the outcomes of the election, how it happened and what must have gone on. So it will be too early to decide or to pass any form of judgments on the current leadership of INEC. Mind you, we are not just talking about Professor Amupiton as an individual. INEC is not just does not just comprise of Professor Amupiton. There are national chairmen. I mean, there's a national chairman, there are national commissioners, and there are other directors at INEC, permanent secretaries and what have you. These people haven't changed. We still have the same people who ran elections in 2023. in 2019 are still there. So you cannot bring in one person and then automatically assume that every other thing would have changed. So for me, it is too early to call in terms of his capacity to run an election or supervise an election that is as complex, in a very complex society as Nigeria.
I hear you, Martin, and I'd like to know, what do you think, in your opinion, needs to be done to restore trust, restore hope in the system? What needs to be done? We're 1 year away from the elections, and there are some Nigerians that are asking questions: will my vote count? Does it even matter? When many times we see what plays out with the malfunctioning of the technology, discrepancies in what is reported, and court case after court case, winners are sworn in, and it's business as usual. So for this government led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, what needs to be done to encourage people to return en masse to the polls?
So I think the first thing is to appreciate the problem, to understand the various problems that we have. The elections that brought in the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was seriously contested. He, cumulatively, if you put the results together, you will understand that he was the least popular in terms of opposition and the ruling party at the time. If you join the election, the results of the opposition parties, opposition candidates, and the parties together, he was the least, So in terms of popularity, he didn't have it. However, he emerged victorious because of the numbers. And after that elections, there was a lot of questions were asked. People doubted the process, not just because of his person as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu or as an APC candidate, but it was also about how INEC conducted that elections, how INEC was making promises at the time. The chairman at the time, Professor Yakub, was making promises that the elections will be transparent, that results will be uploaded in an IREV server, IREV portal, where people can see the results real time. And then hopes were really raised at that time. But then what happened? During the presidential elections, results were not uploaded on IREV. And it then questioned the credibility and the integrity of INEC, and then cast some form of legitimacy issues in terms of on the president and the president's victory. But so what should a responsible INEC do going forward? The first thing would have been to carry out a post-mortem and then tell Nigerians that, listen, this was what went wrong. We were either wrong in our assessment of our capacity or the technological advancements or equipment that we have or had. And then we are sorry, we are going to improve on this. But since the 2023 elections, we haven't had such a report from INEC. Nothing has happened. Therefore, that casts a lot of aspersion on the integrity of INEC in the eyes of the ordinary Nigerian. That ordinary Nigerians feel that they cannot trust the process. If a president at the time who was seeming unpopular at the time could emerge victorious in that kind of election, how then can we trust this same process to produce the president or to re-elect the president or carry out a free and fair elections when you still have that president now controlling all the resources, controlling all the national assets and what have you? So there is a problem here, and that problem needs to be solved by INEC itself. INEC needs to come out, be transparent, communicate. We understand that globally, political communication is a big problem among government officials. However, there is a way you can communicate to Nigerians, and Nigerians will understand. So for example, what is the biggest issue currently in Nigeria? One of the biggest conversations has been about the electronic transmission of results, right? And this is even not rocket science. You're saying that we want elections to be transmitted real time from different polling units across the country. Everybody knows that in the nooks and crannies of the villages, we have POS terminals, right? People use POS to transact the banking systems in these areas. So you cannot then tell us that there is technology, there is a challenge in technology. What we then expect to also help to build the confidence of Nigerian citizens is to ensure that INEC and the National Assembly, particularly the National Assembly, listens to Nigerians and ensure that there is the harmonization of the bill that was initially passed by the House of Reps with the bill that was passed by the Senate, to ensure that there's a real-time results transmission. But that's not all. I also think that the biggest challenge is that we can also build a technology that helps to collate that result. Because one of the biggest challenges of our elections in Nigeria is the fact that between the voting and the collation of results, there is usually a lot of malpractice. So how do we kick out that process? It's just like kicking out the middleman in a business transaction. How do we kick out the middleman, who in this instance is collation officers, and the entire collation processes? Is by increasing or putting up a technology platform that helps to ensure that the system itself collates the results and real time is being uploaded and people can see. This will not just take out the middlemen in question, but it will also help to reduce the number of litigation cases that come out during elections or after elections. It will also help to build the confidence of the entire process, because at this time, people can see exactly what the results are. Supporters of political parties or candidates will see directly and immediately, real time, whether or not they are losing an election. And this will help to also boost the confidence of INEC, and not just INEC, but also elections, and improve governance strategy, because in the end, elections throw up leaders. If a leader who emerges and through an unpopular election or through unpopular votes, definitely the policies of that leader or that governor or the president will not be supported en masse by the people. But once you feel like this candidate is the candidate that we all supported or we voted for, no matter what, all hands will be on deck to ensure that the policies of that administration are supported and good governance is delivered and enjoyed by all.
So the technology is very important, and like you rightly pointed out, we have ATM, we have POS, so the everyday Nigerian is asking, why can't this be used for our elections? Now, still on INEC, there have been questions around appointments within INEC. In other climes, is this what is expected? Is this the norm, where the executive appoints the INEC, appoints the electoral commissioners? Or to restore trust in Nigeria, should this be done independently?
So like every other thing, I always say that we can adapt. You don't need to adapt 100% what happens in other climes because of the kind of peculiar environment that we find ourselves as a nation. As far as Nigeria is concerned, the conversation has always been that a president should not nominate the INEC chairman, largely because of the kind of influence that the president actually wields, and also the fact that our institutions are still not very strong enough to be independent enough to work without interference of the president. And this has been one of the biggest outcomes of the Justice Uwe's report, as it then was, where there were recommendations that the president shouldn't be the one appointing INEC chairman, and there were laid down procedures and processes that he basically said. Some people have argued that it will be too, one of the biggest ways to actually solve this problem is to either pass through set up a panel consisting of judicial or ex-judicial officers, civil society, members of the civil society, and religious leaders respectable people in the society who can then say, okay, this is the person, or get names of people they can shortlist and then present to, and then pick one out of that and then present it to the National Assembly for screening, and screening and then approval. But this is not the case, and I think I lean towards the people who feel that the president shouldn't be the one appointing INEC chairman. I also lean in the direction of those who say that a committee comprising of the people that, the categories of people that I have mentioned earlier, either retired justices of the Supreme Court or Court of Appeal, civil society leaders, religious organizations, religious leaders, and what have you, people in the academia, should be the ones to sit down and find somebody or shortlist names of people who should be either resident electoral commissions or commissioners or the INEC chairman. And I think that is very important, because you cannot consistently have a process that is flawed to throw up a process that we expect to be without flaws.
And how confident are you, not hopeful, that the 2027 elections will be transparent, will be free and fair, and probably also record huge numbers when it comes to participation?
So I think this depends largely on the opposition political parties, who should be able to galvanize the people, conscientize the people to ensure that they educate and enlighten the electorate to really come out and either vote, defend their votes, and support the candidates of their choice. Because in every elections, the key players must also be taken into consideration. Civil society can do whatever they want to do, but at the end of the day, they do not galvanize, they don't have that much support to pull out people to say, come and vote for us or vote for a particular candidate. However, I put this on the table of the opposition political parties and leaders to ensure that they put all the institutions that are going to be involved in the elections on their toes, both the security agencies, INEC itself, and all other key agencies that are involved in conducting a free and fair elections, to ensure that they put them on their toes so that nobody will tamper with the integrity of the elections. Because this is a president who is seeking re-election. This is a president whose party is also trying to entrench itself in power to ensure that, despite the fact that they had a successful transition between 2015 to 2023,
Martin, I'm not sure you can hear me.
To 2020,
Martin, can you hear me?
Going into 2027, it still does not mean that the elections, they will definitely try to run an election that will return them. So this boils down to political opposition parties and candidates to ensure that they mobilize a critical mass that will hold both the institutions and the people manning those institutions to account, just as it has happened at the National Assembly, where Senator Akpabio has been boxed into a position where he had no choice than to allow the electronic transmission of results in the new amendment.
Thank you so much, Martin Obono, for your contribution. Sadly, we're out of time on this segment. A lot still needs to be done to restore trust and credibility in the national elections coming up February 2027.